In this video, I'm going to show you how to make the duck pillow, which is Burda pattern 7754. The fabric that you will need for this project can either be flannel, chenille, anything soft and fuzzy. I've used flannel, so I have orange and yellow flannel, and then black and white for the eyes or any other accents that I want to use. If you want to use white and orange or white and yellow, you can do that as well. For this project, you need 6 pattern pieces. Number 19 and 20 are for the body. 31 is the face with the eyes. 32 is the bill. 33 is the tail, and 34 is the foot. When you're looking at your patterns, make sure that you look and see how many you need to cut. So beside the scissors, it will tell you 2 or 1 or 4. So if we look closely at number 19, it says that we're going to cut 1 and that it's on the fold. So that means this top edge is going to be on the fold, which means we are not cutting it. Number 20, we're going to cut 2. 33, we're going to cut 2. 31, which is his face, you're going to cut 2. 32, which is the bill, you're going to cut 2. And piece 34, we're going to cut 4. So if you'd like to take 2 piece number 34s to make it easier for yourself, you can do that. So once you have your pattern pieces, you're going to go lay out your fabric with your good sides touching. Before you start pinning, you want to make sure that you can place all of the pieces you want on each color. So I want my feet, my tail, and my face to be yellow. If you want your body and your bill to be yellow, or just your body to be yellow, you can do that. This is your own creation from here on out. So I'm going to do his body orange and his bill orange. Put those aside for a second. So I'm going to lay out all my pieces, making sure that the fuzzy side, or my good side, is on the inside so they're touching. Put my pieces down before you start pinning to make sure they all fit. And if you have a lot of fabric over on the end, move down your pieces so that we can waste as little fabric as possible. Once you've laid it out, you're going to grab some pins and you're going to pin it. Remember when you're pinning to go straight down to the table, sideways, and come right back up through all 3 layers. Going to go all the way around, putting as many pins as you think you need. I like to use a lot of pins. If you don't want to and you only want to use 4 or 5, that's up to you. And you always want to start at the one by the edge so that you're not going to get all of these ones moving around and having to go back and repin all of them. So once you're done that one, move your pattern piece around. When you have a corner, it's always best to have the point of your pin going to that corner. For the orange piece, you want to make sure the number 19 is on the fold. So what that means is you're going to place it right at the top of your fabric that's been folded in half with your good sides touching, and try and get it as close to the edge as you can when you're pinning it. And we are not going to cut that edge, so you need to leave that one together. Now you're going to trace all the way around, starting with number 19, only tracing the 3 sides so that you don't cut this side, because you're only going to cut the black marks. Now you can unpin it, making sure that you are going to put 1 pin back in to the middle so you can transfer your marks without wasting time. So again, 1 pin in the middle and pull out the rest. Now you're going to take 1 pin, poke it through the nose piece, lift it up, and just like on the feet, on the face, you're going to put a mark. So because it's a nose, I'm putting a circle, or you can put an X, right where that pin touches your fabric. Once you're finished, you're going to write the piece number, which is 32, and your name. And then go back and put some pins back in so that you can cut them pretty quickly after. For piece number 20, anything that has the letter G on this piece we want to transfer, so there's 2 marks right here. So I'm just going to flip it up and put a mark. There's also 2 marks here if you're putting in a zipper. So if you want a zipper, you would mark here and here. If you don't want a zipper, you're going to put 2 marks somewhere in the middle, about 3 fingers apart. So 3 fingers, a line on one side, and a line on the other. And again, pins go in right away. Piece number 19 only has 1 mark that we need to mark. So again, I'm going to flip it up and just do a little line. And then put some pins back in. So this is piece number 19. And this is piece 20. Now you're going to put your pattern pieces away because you don't need these ones anymore, and then we're going to cut it out. When drawing the marks for the zipper, you're going to match these 2 dots right here. So just lift it up and draw a line. And then you still want to transfer these 2 pieces over here with the letter G. And make sure you have the piece number and your name on both sides. And then you need to transfer the marks to both sides. And you can put a pin in to hold them together. With your shears, flat side down, you're going to cut all the way around. Take out any pins. Write your name on the other side. and the piece number. Now piece number 19, we are not cutting this top edge here. We're leaving it intact. Before you trace, make sure you get your mark sheet signed. It is worth 5 marks, and if you forget, I won't be able to give them to you later. You're now ready to start tracing. So take your permanent marker. You're going to go all the way around all of your pieces, following the outside lines. If you find your markers getting fuzzballs on it, take a Kleenex and just wipe it off. That'll help it to go back to its normal state. Now that you're done, you're going to take off all of your pins except for one in each pattern. You now have a whole bunch of marks you have to transfer. So on your face piece, or piece number 31, you need to transfer the dots for his eyes and the 2 lines that say number 10 and no number beside them. You're going to transfer all 4 of these lines that have the presser feet on them on piece number 33. On pieces number 34, you're going to transfer the lines with the presser feet on them. When you're transferring dots or lines from a pattern, you're going to stick your pin through the dot, or dots if you want to do both at the same time. So it goes all the way through. You're going to lift up your pattern piece, and you can see where those dots touch your fabric, and you can put a dot or you can put an X. You can choose. This is just a placement for your eyes. Same thing with the lines, except with the lines you need to do the top and the bottom. So I'm going to put pins in the top of each line and do those first, and then switch and do the bottom. Because it's a curve, I'm using the side of the tail to get a nice curved line. Going to do the same thing with the feet. Again, I'm going to use the side of my tail because it's a curve. Now that you've transferred all your marks, you need to write your name on every piece. This way, if it falls on the ground, I'll be able to give it back to you. Another thing you can do is you can write the pattern number, because I will be referring to the numbers as well as the description as we go. So for example, if I was going to write the number for the tail, I would write number 33 just on the bottom. 34 for the foot. And 31 for the face. Before you cut, make sure that you put some pins back in to hold your two layers together. That way they're not going to come apart or become uneven as you're cutting. Again, put as many as you think you need. I will probably put 4, 5, or 6 in each piece. You can do this one piece at a time if you want as well. So if, for example, pin the face, cut the face out, pin the tail, cut the tail out, because I know in class that sometimes we don't have enough time to do more than one step at a time. And it's not safe to keep pins in your buckets, so the safer option would probably be to do one at a time. Remember when you're cutting that you want to lay the flat side of your shears down on the table. Your thumb goes in the small hole and your fingers go in the big hole. You can have your one finger out or you can put them all inside, whatever is more comfortable for you. Start on the table, use your whole shear and go all the way around. Trying not to lift it off the table at any time, unless you absolutely have to. take your scraps. If they're big enough to make something out of, which this is not, you're going to save it. If you want to keep it in your bucket in case you want to use the yellow for decoration, go ahead. Otherwise, this goes in the trash. So trash pieces like this, if you can cut off the stringy sides, we can keep these big pieces for decorations or for something different. Something like this, same thing again, cut off the stringy part because this part was on a fold, so now it's really large and that can be used for any kind of other projects. Once they're all cut out, you're going to take out every pin except for one, just like we did before. You're going to write your name on the other side of all the pieces. For these ones, you do not have to transfer any of the lines that we drew because we only need them on one side. So just your name goes on the other side. Once you've done that, you're going to cut out your eyes. So if you want to, you can pile up all of your pieces into one big pile. If you're keeping any pins in your bucket, you should only be keeping one, and that's only to hold them together, like so. When you're deciding what to do for the nose and the eyes, draw some out on paper to make sure that you like the shape that you're going to do, and then use that piece of paper as your pattern piece. So for his eyes, if I wanted to do a heart, I'd want to place my paper on top and make sure that I don't go over those dotted lines because those are for our seam allowance. So this heart would be too big for his eyes, but if I wanted to use it for his nose, it would work out perfectly. So again, making sure it doesn't go down the middle line and that you still have space on the other side and below for your seam allowances. So if I want to do a heart shape, I would use a heart. Same thing goes for the circles, checking that your size that you want is good enough to fit inside on both sides so they're not going to overlap, or checking that it won't overpower his face. So for his eyes, I'm going to use a small circle, and for his nose, I'm going to use a flower petal shape. So when you're cutting these out of your black and white fabrics, his nose I want to be black, so I'm going to take my black and I'm going to fold it so that my good sides are touching. Take my smallest corner, going to pin my paper just like it was if it was a real pattern. And because it's black, you're going to want to use chalk because permanent marker may or may not show. Depends how good your marker is. Trace around. You do not need me to check this one. You just do it. Once you've traced it, pull out your pin, take your pattern off, and repin it. So that's his nose. When you're cutting it out, same thing. Keep your shears on the table. Now because your pin is so long, possibly for your nose, make sure that you don't cut it. So go right as far as you can, and then if you need to switch your pin around, go ahead and do so. Clean up any edges if you feel you need. So now that's his nose. I'm going to put those to the side, and I'm going to cut out his eyes. I'm going to use white for his eyes. So good sides together. Finding the smallest piece that I can that will fit my eye. Folding it in half. Now I'm using the inside circle of this, so I'm not actually going to pin it, I'm just going to hold it and trace the inside circle. When I'm ready to cut though, I will put a pin in because I want my fabric to stay. The smaller it is, the harder it will be to sew and the harder it will be to cut out, so keep that in mind. So once they're cut out, take your pattern pieces one last time and make sure they're going to fit within the pattern. Now that you know they're going to fit, you're going to take those pattern pieces and you're going to sew them on using your machine. So taking one of the face pieces, the one that has the marks on it, and one of the bills that has the marks on it, you're going to take your pieces and 2 pins, taking a pin, put it through the X or the circle that you drew, flip it over. When you're finished sewing, this top part, this straight line, will be attached to his body. So keep that in mind when you're placing your eyes. Take your good side up, thread it over top of the pin, then hold your fabrics, pull the pin out, and rotate your pin to the other side. So to attach the nose, take the one piece off that does not have the 2 dots, stick your pins through, make sure your good side is up, and slide it down. Pin it together on the good side. And now that you have the eyes and the nose, you're going to sew these on. You can sew it by hand or by machine. I'm going to show you how to do it by machine for the nose, and you can do machine by using the hand wheel for the eyes. For this, I recommend you use a color of thread that matches the eye. I'm using black so you can see where the stitches are. So you put your presser foot down. You want to make sure that your white fabric is in between your presser foot so that it's going right down this line here. You're going to turn your hand wheel towards you, 3 stitches, press your reverse stitch button or back stitch button, and turn your hand wheel towards you, 3 stitches. Once you've done that, you can take out your pin, and you're going to just follow the edge of your eye. When When you need to turn, put your needle in, lift up your presser foot, and spin. When you get to the starting point, press your reverse stitch switch button and reverse 3 stitches. And that's how my eye is going to look. Then you're going to start on the next one. Now for the nose, same idea. But because if you have black, you can do it right on the inside, or you can do it in the middle, your choice. Depends how big your nose piece is. Because you're still using the hand wheel. When you get to the start, reverse 3 stitches or more. Make sure you cut off all your strings on both sides at this point, because if you leave them, it just leaves more work for you later. You're now going to take the other side of the bill, and you're going to take the good sides and put them together. So what that means is if you should see your writing of your name on both sides, if your good sides are together. Going to start pinning at the top corner and make your way all the way around. The more pins you can put in, the better. They do not have to be side by side. You can leave spaces. I'd leave 3 or 4 finger spaces in between each pin. That way you don't have to constantly pull them out. Keep in mind if the point is sticking out the end and you're sewing across it, you can leave the pin in. The machine is meant to sew over them when they're that way. If you're not comfortable, then feel free to pull them out. We are not going to close this part, so I'm going to put an X on the tops so I know those are my start and end points. And if you want to, you can even write open on this part. So you're going to sew from here all the way around to here with a straight stitch on the 5/8 line. So this is your 5/8 line right here. It goes all the way down to your bobbin cover plate. So make sure you're lining it up in both spots. Don't forget to back stitch here. Now on the curve, go really slow And make sure that you follow the curve on your bobbin cover plate. That is the important part, because it will follow that all the way around. When you get to the end, back stitch. And clip it off. Now you can take out your pins. Cut off your threads. And now we're going to cut those notches again, just like we did on the feet. So folding in half, cut away, making sure you don't cut your seam. Then you're going to cut your seam smaller. And then take your bill, and you're going to flip it inside out. Make sure he gets nice and round. Now you can go iron him like this, and then we're going to baste around the top here. Lining up on the 3/8 line, and no back stitching this time. You're now going to take the face piece, and you're going to take the good side with the eyes and place it so the curve of this one matches the curve of this one. So your yellow curve goes along the bottom lowest part of that orange curve, and these two black lines that you drew should line up with the seam on the side of the bill. So that's the first piece that you want to pin once it's lined up, is right on the sides. Now you're going to take your other yellow piece with the bad side on the table, so your good sides are touching, and you want to line it up the same way and try and make it match the yellow piece underneath. Change your pin so it goes through all the layers. So you should see your pin on this side and then your pins on this side. You're going to sew from this corner up and around to this corner. So we're leaving this side open. Again, if you want to mark it open so you don't sew it or put an X on the corners to remind yourself, then that would be also another good idea. I am going to put a pin where I start and where I end to hold all my pieces together, and one right in the middle. So we're sewing on the 5/8 line with a straight stitch on this one. I'm going to start on the bottom corner, lining up with the 5/8 line. Put my needle in, forward, back stitch. When you get to this point, you're going to have to pull back here to get it around because it's so thick. And back stitch. Pull out your pins, cut off all your threads, before you cut any of the notches, you need to lift it up and make sure it's how you like it. So his face should look something like that. If you like how it fits here and you have no holes, then you're going to go back to the inside. You're going to cut the corners on the orange so they match your yellow. Then you're going to cut notches on this part, and we're just going to cut this smaller. So fold in half, cut away from your seam. And we're going to cut it smaller. Flip it back up. Now you're going to baste from this corner across to this corner, making sure that you don't backstitch on this one. So line it up on the 3/8 line. And just go straight across. When you're sewing the lines onto the feet and the tail, you're only going to take the one side that has the marks on it, which is why we write our name on the other side, because you're going to leave this one in your bucket and it will look the same as your partner. So you're going to take the tops of all 3 pieces, so your 2 feet and your tail. Then you're going to go to your sewing machine, make sure it's threaded, and we're going to choose our settings. For your top stitching, you can use any of the decorative stitches that have an A on the top, because we're using a presser foot with the letter A on it. So looking at your designs, take your stitch pattern control dial and turn it until you find the design you like. Once you've found your design, check that your tension, which is in the top of your machine, and your stitch width and stitch length match the reds, because red is good. So your stitch width should be between 3 and 6. I'm going to move it to about a 4. 4.5 maybe. And now my stitch length can be anywhere between 0 and 4. So I'm going to keep it on 3 because I really like the stitch length of 3. Your tension is between 3 and 6, so you might want to move your tension so that it goes up to about a 4. So looking at your dial here, it should be on a 3, moving it up to a 4 or a 4.5 if you like. When you're sewing, you're going to be sewing on the bad side. So make sure that the thread that's in your bobbin is the color you want everyone to see on the good side. If you want it to be yellow or orange, I have those colors, so just come see me. I'm going to do white so that you can see where everything is going. So you're going to put your presser foot down so that the middle of your presser foot is following the line. You're going to try and keep that as close as possible from deviating as you can. Remember to backstitch at the top and bottom of your seams. Before you do your foot, if you want to change your pattern for your feet and have them different from the tail, go ahead and do that, or you can do them all the same, or you can do a straight line if you want. It doesn't have to be a pattern. It's up to you. Now you're going to go and cut any threads that you have hanging. If you notice, I didn't take this out and cut it, I just moved it over, and that was just to save time. So for these ones, cut on the side and then cut it as if it was just one string. Now you're going to take your good sides, so any side without writing is your good side. You're going to match your feet and tail back up together as close as you can, obviously. And you're going to put your pins in again, making sure to go through both layers and that you're lining up pieces as close as possible to being exactly even. You want to make sure your points of your pins are going out to the side so that we can pull them out as we're sewing. Before you start sewing, you need to pick which side of your tail you want to stick out. So if you want him to have a long tail, so if my hand is his body, so it's like this, you're going to leave the short side open. If you want him to have a fat tail, you're going to leave the top open. On both feet, you're going to leave the diagonal piece at the top open as well. So you're going to start at this corner, go down and around, all the way back up to this top corner, leaving this side open. That is why I've put a pin here. I'm going to do the same for my tail. So I want to have a fat tail, so I'm going to leave this top part open. So I'm going to put a pin sideways, which is going to tell me that I don't want to sew that. Now you're going to go to your machine. You're going to be sewing with a straight stitch, which is a 1. Your stitch width is 0, and your stitch length is 3. You're going to be sewing on the 5/8 line. So when you're looking at your needle plate, the line that says 5/8 is the one you're going to sew on. So please be very careful that you follow that line all the way around. So lining it up on the top corner, put your needle in, pull out your first pin, go forward, back stitch, and you're going to sew all the way around, slowly following the curve. When you get to your next pin, put your needle in, pull it out, turn. If it doesn't work, go back, do one more stitch forward until it lines up. Make sure you backstitch at the end. Save yourself some time and cut your thread off right beside your fabric. Take out your other pin. Clip this extra thread. Now you're going to move on to your feet. Keep it like this, don't flip it through because we need to cut your corners. So for the feet, starting in the top corner, lining it up again on the 5/8 line, needle in, forward and back, first pin, needle in, pull out your pin, on these curves you want to go really slow because you want to make sure that you're getting that nice point. So every time you have a point, put your needle in and then lift up your presser foot and turn your fabric. If you need to go back and readjust it, for example, do one more stitch, go and do that. It'll benefit your project in the end and you'll be a lot happier with the way his feet look. So just like on our bill and our face, we're going to do notches. So remember that every time that your seam comes out, you do the triangles. And every time it goes in, you do snips that go towards your seam. And then you're going to grade your seam. So again, that means cutting down the top fabric so it's a little bit smaller than the bottom fabric. And then we're going to cut across the tip, making sure that you don't cut your fabric. So taking your shears and literally just going in a diagonal line. You're going to do that for the feet, the tail, and making sure that you're keeping those notches going in on these seams and cutting across both of the corners. For the tail, don't worry about the top, and same with the feet. Once you're done doing your grading, flip it inside out, just like a sock. Don't worry about poking anything out at the moment. We can do that in a second. So once everything's flipped through, I'm going to take a chopstick or a stick from my desk, poke out your corners so that they're nice and sharp. Lay down your tail so that it's flat, and you're going to take 2 pins and going straight up towards that opening, because that's going to hold it while we baste it shut, which I'm going to show you how to do. So we're going to do that to your tail and to the feet. Now you're going to do a basting stitch. So that means you're going to sew across the tops of all 3 of these pieces on the 3/8 line, and you're not going to backstitch. So for a basting stitch, you have your settings on A1, 0, and 4 this time. So you're going to line up on the 3/8 line, which basically means the side of your presser foot is following the side of your fabric all the way down. Our threads off right beside our fabric. You want to leave a long thread on each side, because that way we can pull the thread out if we see it later. The feet are on an angle, so you need to sew it on an angle. Just line it up sideways and pretend that it's a straight line. So again, long strings on both sides of all 3 pieces. If you're not putting in a zipper, you've left 3 to 4 fingers width distance and marked on each side. You're now going to sew on a regular stitch on the 5/8 line, straight and back stitch all the way to the end, and then back stitch. Do the same on this side, back stitch here, go to the end, and then back stitch there. You're starting on the far corner, back stitching, going all the way across to your first mark, back stitch. Then you're going to jump this, which means you lift up your presser foot and you just move all the way to the next dot, go forward and back, and all the way to the end and back stitch there as well. So lining it up again on the 5/8 line, needle in, forward, backwards all the way to the edge, and forward all the way across to that first dot. Back stitch. Lift up your presser foot and your needle. Move to your dot, next mark. Needle in, forward, back stitch, and back stitch at the back. Cut your threads that are in the middle. And on the ends. And we're now going to go and iron this seam open. For ironing, you're going to need a pressing cloth and your iron set to cotton, and then let that heat up for a second. Going to lay your fabric out so that it's good side down, and you're going to smooth out your seam with your fingers, and then place your pressing cloth right on top. Take your iron and go straight across. Take piece number 19 and you're going to open it up all the way so that it is a full square. with your good side facing up. Then you're going to take all your pieces and make sure that the good side, so the side with the designs, is down, and your basting stitches, the threads are out of the way, and you want the tail or the feet or the head always facing the middle. So again, take your design, good side down. This one's on an angle, so I'm going to place it on an angle. If you want to put it in the corner, make sure that the smallest point goes to the corner so that when you're sewing around, you're going to always catch your whole foot. Once they're all on, take your pins. You need to put one pin in each spot to hold it there. And now you're going to baste again over top of your pieces where they touch the orange body. Now you're going to baste all your pieces together. So remember, with basting we follow the 3/8 line, or our presser foot follows the edge of our fabric, and no back stitching. So if you open your duck up, he should look something like this, or if your feet are down here, his feet should be sticking out. Make sure that you fold them so the good sides are touching. Pull all of those threads from our basting inside into the middle so that we can find them after we've sewn around, and so they don't get in our way when we're sewing our next piece on. Then take your piece number 20, place it on top, and you're going to pin in all 4 corners. And over top of all of your little pieces, so where his feet are, his head, and his tail. Once you're done pinning around, flip it over. Make sure you don't have any bunches, so if you have a bunch like this one, unpin it and pull it up more, and then pin it back in. The face and feet and tail are very tricky to sew in because they are so big and bulky. So when you're sewing, you need to make sure that you pull a little bit at the top and bottom. So I would pull with one hand up here and pull with the other down here and guide it under the needle. Alright, so you're going to line up your body on the 5/8 line. Put your needle in, hold your threads so they don't pull through your needle. Go forward, back stitch. You're going to go all the way around until we meet that stitch again. When you get to the face pieces, you might have to pull. And you get to your seams, make sure that your presser foot goes over top of them so they stay flat, or as flat as you can. And you get back to the start, back stitch. Pull out all your pins and then cut off your threads. Now you're going to do a stay stitch, so a regular stitch from this mark to the end, back stitching here and here, and doing the same on the other side, so back stitch at the front and go to the end. And then you're going to baste between the two marks. So remember, basting is a stitch length of 4, no back stitching, and you leave about 1.5 inches to 2 inches of thread on each side so that we can pull it out after you're finished sewing the zipper on. Make sure it's all on the 5/8 line and that you don't overlap your basting with your back stitching. Back stitch and straight all the way to the black dot here. When you get to the dot, go into back stitch, go all the way across to the second one, forward, back stitch, and all the way to the end, and back stitch, now you're going to baste between this mark and this mark, which means you're not back stitching. So line it up again, it's 5/8 line, starting wherever your machine stopped sewing before. Make sure you have lots of thread coming out of your needle, and you're going to just sew straight across. Stopping just before your other stitches, pulling out pretty far so that you have lots of string. So leaving at least 1.5 inches or 2 inches on the side or more. For ironing, you need your pressing cloth and your iron set to cotton. Take your piece, open it good side down, open your seam all the way, place your pressing cloth on top, and just go back and forth a couple times. And now you're ready to add your zipper. To add the zipper, you need a zipper that's the length, if not longer, than your seam. And you'll need a zipper foot. So for the Janome machine, it's foot letter E. You're going to take your zipper, make sure that the actual zipper piece is face down, and you want to start where your basting starts. So lay it into the zipper. You're going to take your pin and go from one side all the way across to the other. Then you're going to follow that seam with the middle of your zipper all the way, putting pins in as you go, trying to keep it as close to centered as you can. and stopping where your basting stops. Now on your sewing machine, when you're sewing this, you need to take the middle of the foot, so right down here where the letter E is, and you're going to use that as your guide. So you're going to place it right on the middle of your zipper, go forward and back, all the way down to the end, back stitch, and then you're going to turn, go forward and back a couple of times, turn it again, and go all the way back up to the top, and then back stitch. This top part will be hard because you won't be able to get the zipper foot over it. So we're going to actually stop, open the zipper, and then finish this side just like we did over here. So coming up, turning, going back and forth, turning, and coming down. Before you start sewing, make sure that your basting thread is all the way up on the top on both sides so that you don't sew it down. That way you'll be able to pull out your seam as soon as your zipper is finished without having to do too much, if any, seam ripping. You're now ready to sew. To put your zipper foot on, push the red button at the back to drop off your other zipper foot, your other presser foot. Place the zipper foot so that the left bar is under the hooks, and then just drop your presser foot. You need to make sure that your needle is all the way over to the left, so make sure that your needle is set to a 6 for your stitch width, and your stitch length will be a 3. Going to take your zipper, line it up underneath your presser foot. Use your lever, presser foot lifter, to lift up your presser foot a little bit higher. Place it all the way down, put your needle in, and you're going to sew just like normal, following the middle of your zipper with the middle of your presser foot. When you get to the end, going to turn, go forward and backwards. Once you cross the zipper, lift up your presser foot, turn, presser foot down, and all the way back up. When you can't go anymore, back stitch. You're now going to open your zipper and you're going to push it down so that it's inside the seam you've already sewn. Reclose the top. And then repin it. Then going to reline it up under your presser foot, starting where you ended. All the way to the top. Turn across. If you lose it, just lift up your presser foot and go forward. Back stitch. Turn, pull out your neat pin, and go forward. When you reach your threads again, back stitch. and remove your presser foot. Place your original presser foot back on so that you're ready for the next step. Now you're going to cut your zipper off right here using paper scissors, and you're going to cut off all of your threads as well. So I'm going to start by cutting off my threads. Making sure you get all of them on both sides. Remember not to cut your long ones at the end, because those are your basting ones that we're going to pull out. So using paper scissors, right where your stitches ended, just cut it straight across. Throw this piece in the trash. And now you're going to take your basting stitch and very carefully, you're going to try and pull it out. If it gets stuck in a spot, it might just end up breaking. That's fine. Go to the other side and pull it out there. It just could mean you caught it with your sewing when you were either sewing your zipper or when you were sewing your original stitches. Now when you flip it over, you should have a nice opening. If you unzip your zipper all the way, you'll have a nice small little opening there. Take piece number 19 and you're going to open it up all the way so that it is a full square with your good side facing up. Then you're going to take all your pieces and make sure that the good side, so the side with the designs, is down, and your basting stitches, the threads are out of the way, and you want the tail or the feet or the head always facing the middle. So again, take your design, good side down. This one's on an angle, so I'm going to place it on an angle. If you want to put it in the corner, make sure that the smallest point goes to the corner so that when you're sewing around, you're going to always catch your whole foot. Once they're all on, take your pins. You need to put one pin in each spot to hold it there. And now you're going to baste again over top of your pieces where they touch the orange body. Now you're going to baste all your pieces together. So remember, with basting we follow the 3/8 line, or our presser foot follows the edge of our fabric, and no back stitching. Now that you've basted all of your duck together, you're going to fold them back in so that they're on the inside, or the good sides are touching, just like you did before you sewed it. Then you're going to pull in all your strings into the middle. Take your piece with the zipper, so piece number 20, unzip your zipper so that it's nice and open for you. Lay it down so that the corners are all touching. Pin your corners first. And then take a pin, and anywhere where there's a foot, a tail, or your face, you're going to make sure that those are all lined up. The reason we're pinning them is because when you sew, it's very thick and you have to pull them, otherwise it won't work properly. Make sure your seams are open. This is very important for the zipper because if it's folded, it may not open properly. Once it's all pinned, flip it over. Make sure you don't get any puckers. So here we have a fold, so I'm going to unpin this side and pull the bottom and then repin it. Now you're going to sew all the way around without leaving a space, because you have your zipper spot to flip it through on the 5/8 line with a straight stitch. Alright, so you're going to line up your body on the 5/8 line. Put your needle in, hold your threads so they don't pull through your needle. Go forward, back stitch. You're going to go all the way around until we meet that stitch again. When you get to the face pieces, you might have to pull. When you get to your seams, make sure that your presser foot goes over top of them so they stay flat, or as flat as you can. And you get back to the start, back stitch. Pull out all your pins and then cut off your threads. So pulling out all your pins. Any basting stitches that you see, you can pull out after. So make sure that you have no threads hanging on the inside from your stay stitching, which is the sewing we just did. Then you're going to take it through the opening, either the zipper or your hole that you left. And using your fingers, you need to push and pull. And cut off any threads that you see here, and then you can stuff him, and then we'll put the invisible stitch.